The argument at Matter revolves around the question of whether or not it is a smart idea for students to read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. This novel is a classic work of literature written by Mark Twain. The old language used to depict the adventures of a young white Southern boy and an African-American slave present an issue of want for censorship. The so-called provocative word choice acts as a discomfort for modern-day readers. The derogatory term used in reference to an enslaved African American at the time is often replaced with the word slave. The replacement of the word from its original text only acts as a buffer to reality and the way the 19th century Southern society was. The chosen use of words emphasize and illustrate a clear picture of the issue and severity of the topic of slavery at the time. As mentioned in the New York Times article, A Teachable Moment, the author states that censoring a word fails to address deeper problems with racism in our society. The author also makes it a point in saying that uncomfortable topics like sexuality, racism, harassment, and prejudice need to be confronted rather than tucked away. Racism is a real and present issue in the world today. Young readers should be exposed to classic literature to use as an aid to better understand what shapes today's world. Young individuals need to be able to go in the world with a solid basis of understanding their surroundings. The author in the article, What Would Frederick Douglass Say?, mentions that the more students read sanitized materials in high school, the more they enter college inclined to dispel things they don't want to hear. Ultimately, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, written in the original words of Mark Twain, allow its readers to be immersed in a fictional piece of literature while gaining the history and understanding of the 19th century South. Students should be reminded that however uneasy the word makes us, what should make us much more uneasy is the fact that we, the United States, were a slave-holding society. One of the beauties of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is that it plunges readers so deeply into an era in which black people could illegally be trafficked by whites. In addition to portraying the mind of a young person trying to develop a moral conscience, it reminds us of where we come from and consequently who we are, of a brutal history that continues to affect us.
I agree with the author David Matthews when he says, quote, "A slave without the proper historical guideposts could conjure the lowly born, the unlikely member of the wrong caste, or maybe victim of some feudal system. There is no equivalency between slave and the primary derogatory term used in this book, which is an American invention. It's a word that denies humanity and along with its justice and mercy. The derogatory word for an African-American man during the 19th century is not equivalent to the word slave. Huck Finn is a serious and influential book and was not to be read by children. Slavery, gender roles, and class and racism continue to be prominent in the American culture. In the 19th century, these things occurred more often, and the children need to understand a background to read such texts, and most of them do not. As Dave Matthews points out, the modern readers are too comfortable and lazy. The derogatory terms, such as the ones used in the book, only help to enhance the reality of the Southern 19th century culture.
In the book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, there are two very meaningful sides to which the book should be or should not be censored. When you take a deeper look into the side that says the book should be censored or just not read at all, there are two things that I found particularly interesting. In the article, Why Read That Book? By Paul Butler, the last paragraph stood out to me more than any of the others. He talks about how black students who read texts such as Huckleberry Finn feel pain towards derogatory words. He understands such pain because he went through the same thing when he was in high school. He talks about times in his life that the derogatory term for an African American has hurt him. He says how these words have more power to people than other offensive words, and I believe that that statement is very true. The last sentence sums up his article very well. This isn't about censorship, it's about choice. Either choice will have unfortunate consequences. In the article, The Words of Pat Finn's Rant by Shelley Fisher Fishkin, it gives you a great quote in italics on the side of the article. It reads, "It is the persistence of a racism in America that makes the N-word in Huck Finn a problem in the classroom. I personally think that this quote from her article completely sums up that side of censorship towards Huck Finn. This proves that the book Huckleberry Finn should be censored in classrooms or just not read at all.
I believe the derogatory term used in Huck Finn can be replaced with the word slave. I do not believe it has any effect on the way people read the novel, and people get what Mark Twain was saying anyway. Mark Twain was known to be very anti-slave. Therefore, use of the word, which was common during the time, is not so common now. Therefore, it is not needed. So anyone, especially in the younger generation, who is reading Huck Finn, does not need to see that kind of language.